how the win over Texas could be the catalyst that gets this team back to Texas come Final Four time. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you to everyone that's liking and following this show, subscribing to it, following it on audio. The podcast has grown so much, and it means the world to me and others who help us out with the show. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast that covers both UConn men's and women's basketball, the basketball capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you that coverage because it's what you deserve. To show the gratitude that we have, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project. I'm super proud to partner with them. We're helping send kids to games on a regular basis, whether it's to the men's or the women's games, also UConn football and baseball come springtime. We also make a monthly donation to Bleeding Blue for Good, and we hope that you'll support them as well and their NIL initiatives. If you're enjoying the show, take a moment to subscribe, follow, and leave a review wherever you listen. Thanks again for making Locked On UConn that first listen every day. Special shout out to my everydayer. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. If you're a new FanDuel person, remember the phrase Kansas City money line, and you'll be fine. All right. UConn is starting to click on both ends of the floor. The victory in Texas wasn't just another road win. It could be the seminal moment that sparks a season-long turnaround. With tenacity, defensive growth, and key performances, the Huskies look like a team rediscovering their identity at the perfect time. And could this be the catalyst that carries them all the way back to the Final Four in Texas, in San Antonio? Maybe we visit an old friend in Steph Castle and Qantas and his mom and dad, Sydney. This team is starting to resemble the team many of us envisioned, myself included, in the preseason. Connected, cohesive, efficient on both ends of the floor. Sunday's wire-to-wire win over Texas, their second straight quad one win, by the way, wasn't just about the 76-65 score. It was about how they got there. And for the first time this season, they displayed great ball movement, offensive flow that looked instinctive versus force, like they were trying to figure it out. Hassan Diarra was the engine, dishing out a career-high 11 assists, orchestrating an offense that showcased the Huskies the potential that this team has. From perfectly timed lobs and slips by Samson Johnson to backdoor cuts to solo ball, Alex Karaban's slipping off-ball movement, UConn created high percentage looks. This wasn't just hunting threes. It was about attacking and efficiently and understanding about how to balance the offense between hot spots. We've talked about this before. Their hotspot threes, high percentage twos, and as Diarra put it post-game, the team is full of weapons. My job is to get them the ball. Karaban's return from concussion protocol was pivotal, playing 39 minutes. I think he played pretty much all 40. It says 39 in the box score, but I don't know if he subbed out. It might have for a minute. He finished with 21 points, 11 rebounds, and a couple of blocks and 2 steals. His ability to stretch the floor offensively and crash the boards. I've also seen a better want to from the wings to go get rebounds when they force teams into tough shots. We're not seeing as many offensive rebounds. And it's those winning plays that have steadied the Huskies. And it's no coincidence the team's offensive execution looks sharper with their captain back. We saw the patented, screen Husky slip there that Karaban just absolutely does to perfection, earning him easy looks that help UConn build on the momentum of their lead and maintain that lead. I believe they got off to a 22-6 start. It was fantastic. But this was more than just offensive showcase, right? The defense, while absolutely still a work in progress, was noticeably better. All you have to do is look at a Texas team averaging 81 points per game that was held to 65 at home. The Huskies limited the Longhorns to just 8 field goals in the first half, building a 42-24 lead, and really set the tone. I never felt uncomfortable in this game. Yes, were there moments where Trey Johnson went off in the second half? He had 18 points, 6 of 9 shooting, and UConn we made him work for everything. He's an NBA player. Absolutely. Will 100% be in the lottery. He's 6'6". Diarra was pesky on him, but he shot over him. Ball tried to stay in front of him, but he still rose up over him. Tried Liam, a bigger guy. He went by him. They all tried to stay connected, switched. They communicated well. Sometimes the guy is just better. That's okay. And honestly, we saw that last year. There were teams. I think there was a guy, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I think he transferred out of Seton Hall, who had 22 points in a game that we beat them by 30. Who cares? Doesn't matter. The foul trouble, however, remains a thorn in UConn's side. Both Samson Johnson and Terrace Reed picked up 2 fouls in the first half, forcing Yusef Singari into action. And while Yusef, he logged some good minutes, had 4 fouls in 8 minutes, and he did enough to hold the fort down. What made me laugh is Danny in the postgame said I couldn't be the guy who had a guy foul out in the first half. I had to get him out of the game. So still, the whistle has been particularly unkind to Samson this season. I mean, I know that he has fouling issues, and I know that some people are going to be like, oh, stop talking about the fouls. It's a huge part of this, because when we get to the numbers of what Samson and Terrace are doing collectively, it's almost identical to what Donovan and Samson did last year. So we're getting the production that we deserve and that we knew we were going to get from them. But we're not getting the whistle that I believe we deserve. Not because we're back-to-back national champions, but because these guys aren't fouling as much as these officials are blowing the whistle. I get it. If you put your hands down, they're gonna call a foul. But if you have your hands at your side and a guy jumps into your chest, the foul isn't on the defensive player. I don't care what anyone says. We need to get clarity on that rule, and I think that's something that we need to work on. I know they should both be working on walling up because they're both tall. I think Samson needs to play off people a little bit so that he can use it as athleticism so that he gets a little space. But I want to know what the plan is with that. Do we just take away all the aggression? Do we just olay it like Roger Dorn from Major League and just let people get to the basket? There's got to be a happy medium there. Talking to officials, making sure they let UConn know like what's allowed, what isn't. That's 100% allowed for Dan to do that and his staff to figure out how to get them past this. But Reed and Johnson both made their belt when they returned in the second half. Reed showcased his post moves, his instincts. He had a lot of slips to the basket as well, finishing with 12 points and 5 rebounds. Samson, meanwhile, continued to protect the rim and play his role defensively despite battling foul trouble. Their start really helped balance as the big man, the combo that UConn fans have gotten used to recently. And we're going to talk about their numbers in the second segment. But when utilized correctly, as they are right now, it's 100% effective. And it is a wonderful combination. Dan has really found something in Terrace Reed and has enhanced what Samson does because he's getting more utilization. This team's defense, though not flawless, was 100% more connected this game than it has been all season. They allowed just 7 offensive rebounds compared to 13 against Baylor. The rotations look cleaner than it did against Baylor. There were fewer lapses leading to wide open looks. This team was in the faces of players. Kaluma hit a couple threes, but again, there were good closeouts. This team isn't going to be an elite defensive team overnight, but Sunday's game was a nice step forward. Memo to everyone pushing the panic button on this: teams improve. A team coached by national championship level coaches and staff will improve a lot. The number 25 ranked UConn men's basketball team, it's so weird to say that out loud because they're not going to be ranked 25th. And apparently they're not supposed to be ranked by certain media outlets, but we won't talk about them. It's kind of silly. Is going to get better, and it's going to get increasingly better. And all those who aren't ranking them right now are going to look incredibly stupid as we potentially beat a Gonzaga team or as we go on a nice little run here in the Big East, because I feel like this is an absolute step and it's a quantum leap forward from where they started this year. And they just got their 3rd straight win. They won a game against a Baylor team that's a quality team against Alex Karaban. Then they come back with Alex and absolutely dominate a Texas team on the road. Do you know only great teams win road games by double digit points? And I'm going to give a nod that to a team that I guarantee you guys will think I'm going crazy because I never give them their due even when they're good. And I want to double check. So I'm pretty sure they did the same thing as we did last night. But let's double check the scores from around men's college basketball last night. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pause it for a minute. I'll repeat myself because I paused it. Only great teams win by double digits on the road. Who else won by double digits on the road? Now, albeit in conference against a Louisville team that was a little banged up. Doesn't matter. Duke won by the identical score, 76-65. And they started off poorly. They probably could have won that game by 20. So I'm here to tell you that even though I can't stand Duke, Duke is legit. And contrary to the people that were pouring dirt over our grave, UConn is legit too. And it's only going to get better. So 76-65 win, and it wasn't really that close. Biggest notable difference between the Huskies today and the Huskies that lost 3 straight in Maui. Defense, obviously. Texas guards tried time and time again to take UConn guards to the hole, but Haas and Solo stepped up. So did Liam McNeely when he needed to. We're going to talk about that and how this was more of a statement win in terms of the psyche of this team coming up after the break. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite. And right now, you can save on unforgettable gifts with 51% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience that consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with the thoughtful curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites from legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more. Save 50% off site-wide for a limited time. Save at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com. An extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. Okay, you're back on Locked On UConn. We were talking about this. Look, there's some really big advantages and disadvantages of this team, or pros and cons, right? UConn is learning how to live with its flaws. Samson and Terrace Reed have been foul prone all year while they are improving, and we're going to get to their stats in a little bit. Maybe they use Yusuf Singari, who held his own for 8 minutes, even with his 4 fouls in that time. The second half, both were instrumental. UConn holding off Texas, who were kind of coming out hot. It's not only Trey Johnson, but they had some other guys making some jumpers. But here's the thing: if I'll go back to Maui for 1 second. If we played that game over, I think we play them and we beat them because their guard play was so elite and so, like, to use a phrase that I would use like when I was playing tennis professionally, is treeing. Like, you're so far above what you normally are. You're in the trees. Like, that's how high you are. And so you got to trust that that's not always going to be the case. And it has a lot less to do with how bad you are defensively and how good the other person plays. So in the tennis world, it was just hold on long enough to see if they can come down to like where they normally are, right? Memphis never did that. And so they went up. And then obviously Dayton did the same thing to us. So yes, there were trends that are all with those Maui losses. But when it comes to a game like last night on the road, you have to expect the team to kind of come back to the averages and not they were 9 of 10 to start the second half, Texas. So they chipped away at the lead, but we kept getting easy buckets. We kept, going to the rim, hitting a few timely threes. Samson scored 10 in the second half, doing what he does, getting to the rim, showing his chemistry with Hassan Diarra, probably the best player-to-player connection on that team right now. Terrace Reed again had 12 points and 5 rebounds himself, showing an array of post moves. Alex Karaban was back after missing 2 games with a concussion. He had 21 and 11, 4 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals in 39 and a half minutes. He and Diarra did their jobs as veterans and leaders of this team. And it's the psyche of this team that I was worried about, not their talent. Whether Jaden Ross plays, whether Aiden Mahaney doesn't play, I guarantee you're going to see a little bit of Aiden Mahaney in the Gonzaga game, no matter how good we're playing, because that's a team he's familiar with. And I think his eyes are going to light up and he's going to have a big game for us there. So he wasn't needed in this game. That's okay. That's a part of being on a winning team. Solo Ball, who looked every bit as good as advertised last night, offensively and to some parts defensively, wasn't needed on last year's team. Who are you taking him out for? Who last night should have left the game for Aiden Mahaney? I can't think of anybody. The results are the results. So there's still a long way to go, but the Huskies are figuring it out. Teams improve, and UConn is proving that in real time right now. So, yeah, I mean, the psyche, it reminds everyone what the Huskies are capable of when they're firing on all cylinders. You don't just beat double-digit teams on the road. We just said that earlier. But they basically had a masterclass defensively and offensively. It's not going to look the same. It may look similar, but it's going to look different than last year because you don't have 23 and 24-year-old guys running the show now. You do have Haas, who's an older guy, but that's it. Alex isn't 23, 24. He's a redshirt junior. So what is he, 21? I think this is where UConn found their identity. Really, I mean, honestly, the Baylor game was a grinder. No Alex, you had to figure it out in multiple places. But, you know, what they did in the first half, what they did, it was kind of, reminiscent of the run that had them cut nets down the last 2 years. Alex was at the heart of all of it. Some of his quotes was, "It was one of the longest weeks of my life," reflecting on his time away. To be back was amazing. The adrenaline kicked in, and it really felt like it was a nice opening night for me. Hassan talked about this. This team is full of weapons, and I've just got to get them the ball. We talked about that earlier in the show. Solo is continuing to show why he's one of the key pieces. 16 points, including clutch three-pointers mid through the second half that halted a Texas run. This is where I want to get into the numbers between Samson and Terrace. They combined for 24 points, giving them a constant presence down low. And I want to go directly to the box score before we get into the overall stats for these two. All right. True to form, Samson Johnson is not a great rebounder. He only had 1 rebound last night. He had 1 block. Terrace Reed had, I think, 6 rebounds and 12 points. So 24 points and 6 rebounds between the two of them last night. But Yusef obviously gave us a little bit of a pop. And we talked about what it would take for us to replace the Donovan, Klingon, Samson Johnson duo from last year, which was Donovan averaged 13 points and 7 rebounds. I'm rounding up on some of these numbers. 2.5 blocks for him. Samson was 5.4 points, 2.8 rebounds, and basically a block per game. So let's talk about putting the two together. Samson and Terrace. Samson is at 7.7 points per game. Exactly what he was last year, 2.8 rebounds, and an uptick. He's at 2 blocks a game, 1.9. Terrace is at 11 points per game and 8.2 rebounds, 1.5 blocks a game. So, does that sound familiar? Because it should. The total of that is 17.7 points per game, 11 rebounds, and 3.5 blocks. The total from last year was 18 points per game, 10 rebounds, and 3.5 blocks. So we are uptick in rebounding because of Terrace Reed's ability, uptick in points because of Terrace Reed and Samson playing more utilization, and around the same blocks. Now, I'm not comparing the two because when Donovan's in there, he makes the team better because of his ability to deter people from coming to the hole. People still are going to attack these guys. But in the aggregate, in what we're talking about and trying to get the same production as we said it would, they are right on schedule. And I think those numbers are going to go up because I think you're going to see Terrace Reed play a little bit more, and he gets more rebounds, more points than Samson. And then on nights like the last 3 or 4, where Samson has essentially made all of his shots and has been efficient, has stayed out of foul trouble. He only had 3 last night. Terrace, I think, also had 3. If they get 3 fouls a game, both of them, we're going places, guys. Last night's game was what this duo is capable of from a points perspective. Like to see them rebound a little more. But Alex picked up the slack and got 11 rebounds. He had 9 rebounds from Liam McNeely. So you're getting from the 2-4 guys or the wings, just like Dan has said. And you just have to understand that this is what this team is this year. And it may not look the same, but you're getting the same production. And while Trey Johnson last night went off for 24 points, UConn made him work. He's super talented. He's going to play in the NBA for a very long time. But the plan was to make him shoot over the top of the defenders, and that's exactly what they did. They executed that plan. Starting to execute the plans that Dan is putting forth. This effort defensively, again, not perfect, but better. And it's going to get better and better and better. Less foul prone. The whistle still went against them at times, but Samson in particular continues to deal with calls that seem unwarranted. Who cares? It's clear that Dan Hurley is wrestling with how to coach through it. Should he wall up? Just stand there? All of that. they'll figure it out. This team isn't perfect yet, but the pieces are coming together. And as Hurley noted, we've shown a lot of resolve. Also, it's being rewarded. Forget about the AP poll. I don't care. We go 25 to 19 to 17, whatever. We climb from 34th to 24th in the net rankings. That's important for seeding. And a jump from 25th to 13th in KenPom with another great opportunity against Gonzaga coming up on Saturday. UConn is really reminding everyone that teams improve. And with back-to-back quad one wins, they're proving this team is not anyone that people want to mess with come March. Certainly not if we get to the Final Four in April. All right. Last segment coming up. We're going to talk about Gonzaga on deck and really just close out the program. I know you guys are going to hear a lot of me this week, both on the men's and women's side. So we're going to close out the show after this. Let's get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn. To close things out, let's take a step back and reflect on what these last two wins mean for UConn and where they stand heading into the Gonzaga game. The victory over Texas was about more than just a win. I believe it was a statement to their fans, to anybody that's doubted them, that even though they lost this MTE in miserable fashion, that this team is not going to be afraid to go on the road and win in a hostile environment against a program like Texas, which is unbeaten at the Moody Center in non-conference games, 21 straight going into this game. UConn snaps that streak for them. And it says a lot about this team's resilience. And it's a win that I 100% believe can be a catalyst for this team, not just for the weeks ahead, but for their aspirations come March. Because remember, Dan does not hide from wins and putting up those trophies and taking them with them in different places. Like, if you don't think that he brought up that the Final Four is also in Texas. Hey, Liam, you're going to show out for people here in Austin, but just wait. We're going to get you to San Antonio too. Because let's not forget, the Final Four is in San Antonio this year. And this victory in Texas could be the kind of confidence builder that sets the tone for the Huskies to take that next step for a deep run once the tournament time comes. If I look at my banners back there, I believe the 04 banner that I'm looking at was in San Antonio, and it was. The Houston banner in 2011 was in Texas. And 2014, North Texas, otherwise known as Dallas. And, weird, 2023. So that's four titles in the state of Texas. Wouldn't it be wild if we win a fifth national championship just in the state of Texas? That would be fun. We could essentially say to Duke fans, hey, we have 7, but we tied you. But every time we play in Texas, we have the same amount of titles as you. So that would be an interesting little stat. But again, I digress. That's something for another day. The stage is set for Gonzaga, a perennial powerhouse, and another true test for UConn before they dive into Big East play that opens against Xavier on, I believe, the 17th or 18th. Gonzaga is going to challenge everything they have. I know they've lost a game or two, but the most talented team in the country, in my opinion, outside of Auburn. I know Duke is going to be up there too. Tennessee's good, but they seem to typically wilt down the stretch. We'll see. Don't tell my wife, she's a Tennessee fan, that I said that. But this game against Gonzaga, I feel like, is another step in what's going to be a Big East gauntlet, as you just saw. When you play ACC, Big East, Big 12 games on the road, Big 10, there are no cakewalks. So I don't care if the Big East is down. It's gonna be a tough grind in the Big East regular season. So I think this team is solidifying its identity, and it can really rubber stamp it on Saturday with a win at Store South in Madison Square Garden. Xavier's waiting in the wings to open the Big East slate. I think it's going to be, depending on what happens in the Gonzaga game. I think that Xavier game is obviously a winnable game, like they all are in the Big East. But I'd like to hold my thoughts on the Xavier Musketeers, or as a good buddy of mine calls them, Xavier. College basketball is a marathon, not a sprint. The Huskies are showing that they're starting to find that stride and kind of coast a little bit like they're doing a marathon. They're not trying to win the 100-meter or 40-yard dash. Got to maintain it. Build on the momentum. Last night was a building block. Add another one on Saturday. Gonzaga's next. Dan Hurley will have his team ready, and I'm going to say this on Monday. I don't think it's going to change unless we hear anything about injuries, but I don't know if Ahmad Noel is going to play on Saturday, which is a blow because I like him and I like the trajectory he's on. But if he can't go, I want to see Aiden. Aiden's got to play a little bit on Saturday. I feel like UConn is going to have to give a full complement of players against Gonzaga. They didn't have to against Texas, which is wild. But it does feel like the beginning of a team hitting its stride at just the right time. So I'm not going to make too many predictions, but I would imagine because of his history with the club that Dan's got a couple Aiden packages in store for the Saturday game. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked on, stay connected. Make sure that toughness meter continues to stay steady and is just gradually rising as the year goes on. I saw some of it drop a little bit as we lost some of these games early, but we're back, baby. And guess what? We haven't left. Go Huskies.